go to school, right? They've removed her barriers. And so she sort of has this level of the kind of privilege I was talking about yesterday that the other people in the family don't have, right? Ruth doesn't have any education, so she doesn't have any options. Hang on, I'm doing attendance by hand. She doesn't have any education, so this, her option is to take in this laundry and this ironing and do this work. Mama's retiring from being a nanny and a nursemaid. And who am I missing here? Who did I just see? There we go, Joseph. Cool. Right. So like Mama's life was limited. Walter's life is limited. Ruth's life is limited. Benita's the only one who really is taking advantage of life, right? Her life is kind of unlimited. She experiments with different hobbies and interests. Her family provides her the money to go to school through their jobs. She actually is the most privileged of this whole family, right? To be able to get this education and not have to work to contribute. Travis is a child, right? And so his life isn't necessarily a matter of privilege. His life is a matter of him being a child who is being taken care of by his parents. And so he doesn't really have a whole lot of choice in what he's supposed to be doing. So Benita chooses this education and the family lets her. Meanwhile, everybody else has to contribute to the household. So I've always thought that was a little bit unequal. She is intelligent and she is aware, but I don't think she's fully aware of the social injustice that her brother and sister-in-law and mother have experienced out there in the world. And so that sort of, I don't know, I don't feel as good about her throughout the course of this play as I do about the other characters, because I think she's already there, as we saw when she was dancing in front of the neighbors saying hi, right? She didn't care because she's never really experienced the negativity and racism that her mom and her brother and her sister-in-law have in life, right? As far as Mrs. Johnson goes versus Mr. Lindner, racism and prejudice and bigotry, those are the three words I like to use to describe that attitude, right? And those all three are different levels of discrimination against people who are not part of the dominant culture of a society at the time, right? And so the dominant culture in the 50s was the dominant white culture, stereotypically white. We know George Murchison tries to be white. He literally wears white shoes versus Walter, who wears black shoes, right? That's actually symbolic of their assimilationist attitudes. Walter will act white when it serves him and keeps him out of trouble. George will act white because he feels like it's the only way he can be successful, right? Walter knows differently. So getting back to Mrs. Johnson, she's internally kind of racist and also, I think, a little bit against Black people rising above their station in life, what is, they've all their place in the world. And then Mr. Lindner is like, he makes those two comments. Why would you want to come to a neighborhood where nobody wants you? Right? Which kind of makes sense because nobody is going to want them there. How comfortable is that really going to be? Can you imagine what Travis is going to be like going to that white school with all those white kids from that neighborhood? It's going to be a very, very interesting exercise in human rights and dignity and freedom for this family. I mean, I think it's amazing that they're doing this, right? Someone needs to take a stand. And that's really The purpose of this whole play is for Lorraine Hansberry to show how her family stood up to that sort of discrimination that was happening in that video we saw from Adam Ruins Everything about redlining and discrimination in housing. So when we look at this family, we see tired old Ruth who's pregnant. We see frustrated Walter Lee. We see Benitha, who is, just in everybody's face about everything. And we see Mama, who's just trying to provide for her family. But it's really so much bigger than that, right? She wants to provide for her family in a place where she feels like she has a right to live. And I think Walter is finally starting to get that when he says to Mr. Lindner calmly and without any sort of anger in his tone or his actions, "Get out of my house." And Lindner's like, no, wait, and get out of my house. Get out of my house. He says it 3 times, right? And Mr. Lindner is shut down. I feel like that's the game changer for Walter Lee, right? This is where he really actually changes and starts to own his own dignity and his own pride and refuses to be discriminated against and refuses to stand down, if you will, right, to a white person who is exercising this prejudice and bigotry. So when you're talking about race and you're writing this page, remember you have to write 1 page double spaced, okay, to get full credit. I want to know your thoughts on this. I want to know your opinions on this. I want to know maybe if you've personally experienced some of this sort of racism, prejudice, and bigotry in your life, and how this applies to maybe your family's struggle to find a house to buy, or the kinds of neighborhoods you get to live in, or any sort of thing like that, right? All I'm asking you guys for this semester really is what you think about the reading. I want to know your opinions, and you have to show me in the text why you have the opinion you have. What piece of evidence in the text made you think that way, right? That's really the evidence that I need from you guys. Does that make sense? So try to pick out those pieces of evidence, those instances, those happenings in the book. Maybe a sentence that somebody says to somebody else. Maybe the way Walter stands up and towers over Mr. Lindner and says, "Get out of my house," calmly, right? Without any sort of anger or frustration at all. Tell me what you think about that. How powerful you think that specific instance is. Okay? Any questions on the assignment at all from yesterday that we went over? We looked at Levittown. We looked at Adam Ruins Everything, redlining, and how that held African Americans, specifically, primarily, right back in the day, back from creating the kind of wealth through real estate ownership that a lot of middle-class white families were able to have in that time period, and then generationally passed down to their families. What else did we look at? And then we looked at the film where they go to visit, and we see those neighbors in Levittown, right? In that neighborhood in Chicago. The neighbors who are all white and older and are prejudiced against this Black family moving in. And then we watched Mr. Lindner, and that was the kicker, right? Why would you want to move to a family or a neighborhood where nobody wants you? And so that really is what you need to be talking about. Okay? Questions? No? I think I have everybody. Let me go down the list and read to you who I have here. I have Joseph Smith. I have Adam. I have Jacob Ford, Janine Giron, Irma, Miguel. Oh, I do have you twice, Joseph. I have Jaden, Ayana, Dallas, and Bryson. And so I feel like I'm missing somebody, right? Who am I missing? Rolando, there you are.
I'm here as well, miss.
Cool. I got all of you. So you guys are all set. I will let you go ahead and go. To finish this assignment for me, please do turn anything else in that you have. And Dallas, I have not forgotten to update grades for you. I just haven't had a chance yet. Bear with me, girl. Okay. All right, you guys, take care.